Good day. Welcome to NX University. My name is Craig.robillard. I'm an application engineer at Swoosh Technologies. This session, Hidden Gems in NX. We have two topics for today: exploded views and assembly sequencing. For the first topic of exploded view, it's a bit of a hidden gem in that there's a trick to it. Exploded views can be made in both model and drawing files. However, if you want to put an exploded view in your drawing, you must make it in the drawing file. And that's what we'll be illustrating in this section. What we'll do is we're going to take you through the steps and then summarize with a video tying it together. So when we begin, we'll start from a model and then go to a new drawing file. And then in the drawing file, we're going to switch back to modeling application. So we'll be using the modeling application but on the drawing file. Once in the drawing file, we'll add a new view. In step 2, this new view will be renamed. We're going to name it Exploded. In step 3, we'll go to the assembly mode, and we will choose our explosions panel to start our new explosion, as you can see in step 4. Now, an advantage of explosions is they automatically override any assembly constraints, so you can just focus on what you want to do. So in step 5, what we'll do is we'll select the components we want to move, and then as you see in the manipulator, we'll pick it and we'll just drag our parts over. Now, you're not limited to linear drags. You can move your parts anywhere on the screen and as many times as you want, which you start to see forming in step 6. Then lastly, once we have our parts in position, in step 7, we'll add trace lines. Now, in the video, a couple things to note. When we switch to modeling, it happens pretty quick, so we'll point that out. But I'm going to make a mistake when building the video. When setting up the stagger in the components and moving them around, the two center ones you see, the purple arm and the greenish clamp, I didn't move them over far enough, so there isn't enough room to bring the trace lines through and get the jog like you see on the one rivet going through the two center arms. Now, sometimes it's more illustrative to see something that doesn't work the first time, so I'm going to leave the video as is. So when you forget to do the same thing I did, we'll have that memory jog and say, oh, I just need to go back, re-edit my explosion, move things over a little bit, and then continue add the trace lines. If you have trace lines already in place, that's fine, they will update. Once we get our view the way we want it, we're going to put our view on our drawing. So we'll select the base view, but notice the file that we're picking is the drawing file, because that's where we've made our view. And the model view to use is our exploded view. This is why we renamed it in an earlier step. And then lastly, at the bottom of the panel, you will see in the settings, you have the option to turn off center lines on the fly. It's not a problem if you forget. They're easy enough to take out. Just symbol, draw through the view. But if you want to do it on the fly, you can catch in the settings and just toggle off the create with center lines for the view. So let's take a look at how this works with a summary video. Starting off in modeling, so let's do a drawing. Now we'll skip this part for today, but we'll add an isometric view of the clamp assembled to our drawing. And this gives us a place to start. Now that was the quick part. Went to start modeling, but notice on the tab we're still in the drawing file. We've added our new view. We're renaming it Exploded. Now we'll go to Assemblies and we'll choose our Explosions panel. Now we can start moving components around. Here we'll start with the rivets, then we'll specify the orientation, and we'll just drag them over a distance. Select our next component, manipulator, drag our component. Now, here's where I'm making my mistake. Just moving in plane. While I've moved the arm a little bit over, I have some distance. The clamp and now this purple arm are on the same plane. Now, notice the manipulator isn't exactly where I want it, so we've chosen to move the handles only. Little hidden trick, if you change the snap angle to 0, it's infinitely adjustable. But the clamp and the arm are on the same plane, so when we try to set up a trace line between the two, there is going to be insufficient spacing. That's what I'm asking you to watch out for. So a little bit like maneuvering parts around on your desk, you can see where, we're going to contemplate and say, maybe I want to move another part. I just go right back to my edit. We can do this as many times as we choose. Now we'll start to add in trace lines. Now, watch the arrow. I forget to flip it around. So instead of going straight from the rivet to the hole, see it jogs around? Oops. And the next one I at least get a little bit of a jog. And here to this rivet, even though it should have gone through the hole, you see this has a sufficient stagger to get the illustration I'm looking for. But now I won't. I'm on the same plane, so you can see that trace lines are easy to manipulate using the drag handles. We can move them around. We can ask the system to look for an alternate solution, but because they're on plane, I'm not going to find one. So I'm leaving my flub in place. Surprise, surprise, I'm not perfect. But should you run into this, just go back, edit your explosion, move things over a little bit, and you can do a much better job than I'm showing for today. Now you can continue to edit your explosion, hide components, and so on. Well, what we'll do now is just choose to save our view. It's just a good practice. We will go back to drafting module. This is where we left off. Now we're picking the drawing view and our renamed view Exploded. And now placing that saved view. Now notice I didn't turn the center lines off. You get an idea what they look like. They're a little crowded. Easy enough to edit later. So summary. To make an exploded view in the drawing file, you have to make the exploded view in the drawing file using modeling and assembly commands. The next topic is assembly sequencing. There's two portions of this. We'll do some illustrations. In our example, we'll disassemble our clamp. If we play our video backwards, we can assemble the clamp. So once you've set this problem up once, it's actually versatile. Now another piece of the assembly sequence is extraction path. Think of removing a device from a crowded space. Now this section has been around for a while. We find it's not used as much. So we can actually go back a few years and we show you a John Baker video is noted where he takes a radiator out of a car. Now John does his setup a little different, where he's going to limit motion, so it has to come out the top. And it's kind of a neat video to watch, but because the software has changed between his video and today, we're leaving you the reference if you want to go watch it, but we'll take you through our simpler examples today. Okay, the steps. In assembly sequencing, the first thing we do is we turn off our assembly constraints, unlike exploded views. Don't worry if you forget, the system prompts you. Then we will go to the assembly sequencing grouping next to our exploded views, and you see a new top ribbon bar appears. Here we'll take a closer look at it. Similar in construct to the sketch panel. Reading from left to right, we're going to create an assembly sequence. We're going to provide steps, the sequence steps portion, and this is blown up at the bottom of the screen where we will pick a component, we will move it, and then choose what action. So move the component and then we'll make it disassemble, in other words disappear. Now the record camera position, you can take and say move one part and make it disassemble, then move to another position, almost like you're walking around an assembly bench, and show your sequence from different viewpoints. In the playback, this is where every time we create a motion and an action, there are frames that are made. So the playback may go forward or backwards, depending on what sequence we're after. And then lastly, we can turn on collision detections. One of the things we may wish to find out is, can we assemble or disassemble our assembly? Will the fasteners go straight in, or will they hit a bracket, as an example? So this video is about 20 seconds. Let's just show a disassembly sequence. We'll pick a rivet, we'll move it, disassemble. Pick a component, disassemble, and so on. Fairly quick. We'll do this again just so you, because it goes so fast. But here's we've chosen the motion and then disassemble, motion and then disassemble, and then play back at a nominal frame rate. Extraction path is part of assembly sequencing, and you see where it is in the sequence steps. So it's possible to assemble something, but once in a while we may have to illustrate more clearly how something comes in or out. We will do the opposite of extraction. We'll do insertion. Now the path setup is fairly straightforward. You have a beginning and an end state, then let the system figure out in between. And turning on collision detection allows the system to make some choices for us. So let's illustrate with the bottom rack first. What we're showing it is in the final position, and when it comes forward, it's going to dip so it can clear the rack that's already in place. Now we've added more frames so they will go slow so it's easier to see the motion. Now see, it gets close. Watch for the dip. And then into the tabs where it will land. In the next case, we'll just do the wire rack. Now the wire rack is going to go over the top of the existing rack, so there is no collision to detect. So it just goes in and drops in place. And repeating, these have been purposely set up with more frames so they go slow. This is something that you can dial and make these fast or slow depending on your needs. Now in the last example, our top rack, we've all done barbecue grills before, where for a top rack we have to move to the left or right to clear the pin out of the hole and then tip a little bit so it comes out. Now, at the bottom of the panel on the left side of the screen, you will see limits of motion, you will see settings. If we were to go through the rest of these and set up limits of motion, we give our system more clues. Now, starting at the top, you can see that we're reporting everything's too close. It doesn't have room to maneuver. Well, there's no boundary set up. So we'll ask, find me a valid position, and we see the results of that in the middle screen. It's way out of position, not exactly usable. So what we're going to do is we're going to manually move our rack until we get a start position that is considered valid, which we see here. Now, to keep this video short and simple, we didn't go through and set up all the limits and so on, but one would almost hope that some of this could be found automatically. Well, surprise, surprise, it's not perfect. So here we'll illustrate the top rack going in. At this scale it's a little hard to see, but when the pin gets close to the hole on the right side, it will then go into the hole, then drop into place. And it clicks in fairly quick, so it's very hard to see. And that concludes our presentation for today.